Welcome to ResponseABLE Parenting, the podcast that shows you how to parent in alignment to your emotions, needs, and goals versus your programming, bad advice, and let's face it, outdated strategies that just don't work. You'll get in the trenches support on nervous system and emotional regulation, critical mindset shifts, stronger communication strategies, and more. In this podcast, you'll gain transformational tools that take you from reacting to every frustration to responding with clarity, regulation, and finally setting the example you desire for your kids. I'm Becky Jennings, your new parenting coach, and this is the ResponseABLE Parenting Podcast. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to the ResponseABLE Parenting Podcast. I wanted to just jump in before the episode starts and give a quick trigger warning and a quick disclaimer on what to expect from this episode. I'm actually interviewing a mom, and we are talking about her current situation, and I give her some advice and some coaching on this call. The trigger warning here is that in the explanation of what is happening in her home and the dynamic that we're focusing on, we do talk about the fact that one of her children has been in and out of the hospital since birth. So that is something, if that is a trigger for you, maybe this is not the episode to listen to. That is a quick little trigger warning on that. And the disclaimer that I want to share is that the information that I share and the advice that I give to the mom for this podcast, it is general information and for entertainment purposes only. If you would like to receive personal feedback on your own dynamic and your own situation, please feel free to reach out. This advice that I give to this mom is specific to her and not tailored for your specific situation. So I just wanted to make that quick note before we dive in. I hope you find a ton of value from this episode. And without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. I am very excited because for the very, very first time in all of ResponseABLE podcast history, I am interviewing a parent, and we're just talking about parenting challenges, and we're going to get some strategies and stuff like that on the board. So I'm very excited to introduce you to Emilee. She's here. We're going to talk about what's going on in her house, what the common patterns are, what the common challenges are, and we're going to get into some solutions. So this should be really fun. Welcome, Emilee.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell me about yourself. Tell me about your kids, your family structure. Walk us through it.
So I'm obviously a mom. I have 3 kids. My oldest is 6, who's about to be 7, a 3-year-old who is going on 30. We like to say, and then a 1-year-old.
Wow.
We're a typical, kind of a small young family. So we thought, and then when my daughter was born last year, we were kind of spiraled into the congenital heart defect world. We were unaware that she had anything wrong with her heart until she was born. And then they started to notice some things, and did an echo, pretty much right after she was born. They were like, "Oh, we can't really see anything." And then they were like, "Well, check, again tomorrow," and checked her the next day, and she was life flighted to Mayo within 6 hours. So I
Wow.
was one day post-op from a C-section with 2 little boys. Very thankful my parents were with at the time. My husband flew with my daughter, and I went home and basically threw some underwear in a bag for my kids and went 6 hours down to Rochester, Minnesota. And we were told what was supposed to be a 5-day stay, at the most 2 weeks. We actually landed ourselves down here for about 2 months.
Wow.
Between the cardiac ICU and the NICU, she spent some time down here, and so our boys were pretty much uprooted that whole time as well. And we're very thankful for the circumstances. I mean, obviously, world-class medical facility, and we ended up staying at the Ronald McDonald House that whole time, and so that was an incredible place for our sons and things like that. But definitely not a world we foresaw ourselves being a part of until it kind of happened. And so last year, she's undergone 3 other heart procedures, open heart procedures. And so we've honestly just kind of been trying to navigate what that looks like for our family. And a big thing for us is ensuring that our 2 older boys are not lost in the chaos of that
Absolutely.
medical world. So
I'm so
yeah,
sorry that happened. And, it's one of those things where the vision that we have for ourselves as parents, the thought that we have heading into like our third baby, no one ever prepares you for that. No one ever prepares you for that potential outcome and all the residual things that come from that, right? Like, yes, she is safe. Yes, she has had the best medical care. And still, there's a lot of emotion and feelings and traumas and micro traumas and a lot of chaos that has come as a result.
Oh, absolutely. I know, especially with our oldest, we've really tried to prioritize. Obviously, we're fairly young parents. We had our oldest son when we were 20, so fairly young for the time. So we've really tried to emphasize the emotional aspect of parenting as well. And so with him, it was we kind of knew how he processed difficult things, and so he's very much he'll hold it inside until one day he's just ready to talk about it. And so it was we had gotten home, we'd been home for about a month, and then one day he just kind of looked at us sitting on a couch and he was like, "Wow, it was really hard when Q was in the hospital." And at the time he was 5, and it just blew us away. And it was one of those, wow, I can't believe he actually did that, and we were so proud of him. But there was also a little bit of pride in, well, we helped him kind of with that. And the difficult thing that I think we've had kind of a harder time navigating is our middle child was 2 at the time. So he was completely shell shocked in so many different ways. He went from being the youngest to all of a sudden, hey, I have this baby. I kind of sort of liked the baby for about 20 minutes, and then she was taken away. And then she had all of these medical devices and these tubes, and obviously she was intubated, and he could not even touch her for about 2 months. Not from a standpoint of like no kids allowed to touch her. He could not bring himself to. And so with him, we really dealt with a lot of figuring out how to connect with him and help him through it, because at the time he was so young. But the thing that we've really tried to give our kids the credit of is, yes, they're young, but it doesn't mean that they don't feel those things. And
Absolutely.
it's a lot scarier for them than it's obviously traumatic as a parent, but you want to shield your kids from as much as possible, and you can't shield them from seeing a sibling that way in
Yeah.
that circumstance.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like our kids are born like with a fully formed nervous system, right? The nervous system starts, I believe, at like 6 weeks in utero, and not only are they experiencing that external input and that information, they don't know how to do anything with it. Like they don't have the skills to say, "Oh, I understand what's happening here. I can process this feeling." Like we barely have those skills to process that challenge. And so to be able to prioritize their emotional health and safety during this is incredible and also really challenging. Absolutely really challenging.
Absolutely.
What have you and your husband been experiencing and how is this showing up? How are the challenges showing up for you both?
I think for us, it's so hard because the unique thing about our situation too is we also work from home. So there is no daycare situation in our life. There's no, our oldest is obviously in school. He's in first grade, but yeah, so our middle child is at he really, really struggled. Like I said, there's been a series of different procedures kind of throughout the year. We've really noticed some anxiety there when she has different doctor's appointments. He'll sort of panic and ask if he's going to see her again, or she gets to come home from the doctor and things like that. And so we've really tried to work work with him kind of through that. And he is so sensitive and he's so empathetic, but he is also so headstrong and very if he feels like we're maybe being a bit too harsh, he'll push back. He'll be like, "No, fine. I actually, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but we could call him our walking middle finger." he, he acts like it sometimes, if he feels any type of like, oh, if I'm in trouble, fine, I might as well be in trouble.
Yep.
And that has created a lot of tense moments with us parenting. I know it feels, my husband and I have kind of talked about this at length. He and I almost feel like we don't know him. We're like, how, and it's so frustrating for us as parents because we sit there and obviously your kids in and out, but we'll try one strategy and it'll work, and then the next day it won't work. Or, he's
Yeah.
he's just in a really tough spot, and I think we're all just kind of tearing our hair out, including him, because he doesn't feel heard. He doesn't feel um respected, or and I know it's almost laughable because he's 3 and he still needs those boundaries and things like that. But especially with our situation, we really try to allow our kids to be heard as well.
Yeah.
But it's so frustrating when you're trying to discipline, or you're trying to
Yeah.
parent, and you have a walking middle finger.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Yeah, and not only that, but your nervous system is experiencing a tremendous amount of stress on a regular basis, right? You're not only trying to maintain the health and safety and life of your youngest with the doctor's appointments, with the checkups, with constant, I can only imagine the monitoring, the visual monitoring of any potential change of any sort, of any time. You're kind of more hyper vigilant around her, I'm assuming. I I lost my son in 2019, and the hypervigilance that came afterwards to my living children was almost like this biological necessity to feel like I was keeping them safe, even though,
mhm.
you can't control everything, right? And
I almost felt like an overcorrection when
yes.
the stuff was happening to my daughter. It was I felt so out of control, especially just being postpartum, and so I found myself getting very defensive almost with my other 2 sons. It was like, no, don't speak to them, and it created some tension between my husband and I, because he was with our daughter that whole, it was a transition period of around 48 hours, and she was his sole focus. And so the shift was, my sole focus was my other 2, and just the over, I almost want to say overbearing need to protect the 2 that were okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's
And that
yeah.
comes out in a way that is disconnecting, right? I
Yes.
viscerally remember doing the exact same thing to my oldest immediately after losing my son. Is I was so hyper corrective because I was so enveloped in fear. And that fear basically was telling me, fix every challenge, fix every problem, fix it now, fix, fix, fix. And so it just came out with constant correction, constant oversight, constant, constant, constant. And it really put a wedge between me and him for a while.
Mhm.
What have you tried so far to support your middle finger child, and also, build out some structure for him in a way? Like, sounds like you're doing such an incredible job of allowing the feelings and being really open and honest with that. That's like that's huge, right? That's a huge step for them. But it is also challenging when you're like, there are things that need to happen. There are ways in which we
Yes.
properly interact, right? There are ways in which you are allowed and not allowed to talk to people. So,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So what have you tried so far to help him kind of grasp that understanding?
Honestly, I think that's the part that we're kind of grasping at straws for right now. We feel like we've done everything, from, different reward systems to different corrective, no, you don't get this if you're gonna do that, or different things like that. And I know a big thing that we actually picked up on, I think it was your Instagram, was your kids talk to you the way they hear you speaking to other people, and that's been a huge challenge for us, because we get so burned out and so frustrated, and we find ourselves speaking in a way that we're not proud of, or in a way that he does not respond to regardless. We are just at that point where we are so frustrated and overwhelmed that we snap, and he will repeat back to us exactly what we just said. So if I kind of lose it and I say enough, he'll look at me and he'll be like, enough. And so I think that's
And
it's
that's enough to
it's
send you
those,
even further off
it
the
is.
dysregulation.
It is. And
Yeah.
and I think at that point we don't even know. That's where it gets hard, because we don't know how to help him,
Mhm.
because we obviously want to raise productive members of society who don't look at their teachers and say enough, but we're not sure if it's, oh yeah, he'll outgrow it. That's what we've been told a lot, but for us it's so defeating. And so I think that's the part that we're just grasping at straws. I mean we've tried the gentle correctiveness, and so I think that's honestly where we need the most kind of guidance, is how do we break this cycle of not continuing that behavior and also that parenting
Yeah,
because it's all tied together, right? So,
absolutely. I think there's a couple things at play here. One, it's really important for us to understand that our behavior, as well as our child's behavior, is a direct reflection of the state of their nervous system, right? And I think that's really important for us to mentally reframe in our minds of, yes, the behavior is unwanted. Yes, it is definitely not a pattern we want to solidify, right? These are the things
yeah.
that the outward expression of their behavior can create a lot of internal stress for us, right? So they're talking back. They're kind of saying back to us in a mocking tone exactly what we've just
Mhm.
said to them. And it almost feels like as they're doing that, we're losing our authoritative standing, right? We're losing our stance as their parent. And all of a sudden we're like, we have to do anything we can to re-grab control of this situation. Like, we have to use our bigness to stop this behavior as fast as possible. And it's really tricky, especially when you are really trying to involve like the emotional aspect of things, right?
Mhm.
So these behaviors can be really challenging because we view them as disrespectful. We view them as defiant because they aren't actually good feeling to our body. They aren't appropriate externally in, schools and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And on the other side of the coin, we want them to be able to express themselves and we want them to have emotional intelligence. And so internally, we have this push pull of like almost this internal chaos in the moment where we freeze and we're sitting here going, I know that's not allowed, but I know that's behavior, but I don't actually know how to fix that. But I don't know, and we just constantly
Yes,
ruminate. And then we
exactly.
kind of, the only thing that we can do is follow the state of our nervous system, which will tell us to fight, right? Or
Mhm.
freeze kind of passively allow it. Can I be super real with you and tell you a personal story? A few years back, my son, the whole reason why I do the job I do today, was having one of those fiery moments. He was talking back, demanding it be his way. He was refusing to listen to any of our solutions, and the moment was getting really intense. My husband looked at me and said, "Well, you know all the parenting stuff, fix this." I completely froze. All the scripts from the books I'd read, all the strategies from the podcasts I'd listened to completely disappeared from my brain in that moment. But based on the volume of challenges that we were having with our strong-willed ADHD son, I knew I had to figure out a different way, because panicking in the moment and grasping at anything only to not follow through at all and end up yelling just wasn't working. From this experience, I developed a repeatable, easy to remember, and easy to follow system that literally works with every single triggering moment. I can attest to it because there are many in my life. Now I can show up the way I want. I can communicate in a way that actually resonates with my strong-willed child. If this sounds like a solution for what's happening in your home, take these next 2 steps. Number 1, watch the free training about my rewiring process in the show notes. And then number 2, book your free call. On that call, we will talk about what's happening in your home, and you will get a customized solution that works best for you. I assure you, this doesn't have to feel as hard day in and day out as it does. There is the solution, and I'm so excited to talk to you about it. So I think number 1, it's really important to recognize these moments and say, what is my nervous system telling me? Right? Most of all parenting, and like you said, when I say something, he mimics it. He mimics all of it, right?
Yes.
So we get this beautiful opportunity. While it is really challenging in the moment, we get to recognize what our physiological signs are that our body is sending us. And what I mean by that is like, am I feeling like my heart rate is rapidly increasing? Do I feel like I'm clenching my fists? Is my jaw really tight? Am I starting to sweat? Do I feel panic? Do I feel fuzzy headed? What are the sensations in my body telling me? And when we can allow those sensations to be present, we get to do something different. I always say the trigger is the cue to try something new, right? So we're experiencing the physiological signs. Our body is starting to get flooded with anger. We're starting to, notice that our fists are clenched, our jaw is clenched. We're starting to sweat a little bit. All of these signs are telling us we've moved out of our window of tolerance. We're creeping up that ladder, and we're going to flip our lid. And that is just the natural way that our body will protect us. There's nothing, I want to remove the shame and say, parents shouldn't ever do that, because our body is actually saying, protect us from our child, protect. And so we are naturally following what our body is telling us to do. And as conscious beings, as people who can make choices, right, in the midst of chaos,
Yes.
we get to choose something different if that is, in fact, our priority. And in that moment, we get to recognize the signs that our body is sending us, and we get to put a timeout on the whole situation, right? We're putting a timeout on the whole situation, and we are actively working on taking our body from, say, a level 9 back to a level 8, maybe even a 7 if we're lucky. We're just trying to lower our temperature. And I think a big reframe and something that I have recently learned from my coach is this behavior naughty, or is it neurological? Is it naughty or neurological? Because if it's naughty, we can put systems in place, and we can, we can really work with them to almost practice and train a different behavior. But if it's neurological, then there's no amount of deterrence that's ever going to stop that way of reacting, right? And so we get really curious about where this is coming from, right? I would be very, very curious to see if this is a response to stress, right?
Okay.
He's gone through so much stress and hasn't really had an outlet to really work it out. And I would wonder if his nervous system is now primed for reactivity in a way that might not have been if the
Absolutely.
external circumstances weren't the same. And I think his little body and his little 3-year-old brain, and I know it's so hard because you're like, he's 3, but he's working out a lot of stuff and trying to give the curiosity lens versus the fear-based lens of, uh-oh, this is a pattern. Uh-oh, this is who he is, right? He is a walking middle finger.
Yeah.
While super funny and super cute, the more we view him through that lens, the more we start to gather evidence that, in fact, that is who he is. That is his personhood. And I have my 8-year-old. He has ADHD. He is extremely spicy. There's some other things going on we haven't quite figured out. And it is very, very hard to separate the behavior from the person. It is like a Herculean event for a human, for a mom, to say, this behavior isn't my child. It is a direct reflection of the state of their nervous system. That is
and I think I really had to kind of focus on that when Q was in the hospital. It was, he would, obviously at the time he was 2, so he wasn't quite, even old enough to, we left for Mayo and he wasn't even speaking really yet. He would talk, a little bit, but he was always a little bit more quiet. And he's always been my sort of wild child. He's just silly and he's boisterous, but he's also the most sensitive person. And so seeing his sister like that destroyed him.
Yeah.
And it was almost like we were having to reparent a completely different version of him. And I think what you said resonates with me a lot about, separating the person from their behavior, because I know that this is not who he is. He's not trying to be defiant because he hates us as parents. He's 3. He doesn't even know what that means. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. And I think another thing to remember is that sort of keep you at arm's length, spicy, like defiant attitude, that's deeply protective, right? That is an incredibly protective coping strategy to not feel way more vulnerable feelings. Like you said, that destroyed him and it made a huge impact on him. Anger, aggression, those are all really beautiful ways to keep you at arm's length and not really address what is really going on underneath. So whenever I'm seeing anger, unless it's quite literally been my son has punched the other kid, and that would obviously elicit anger, when my son's acting angry and being rude and defiant, that's a cue to me to be like, what's going on underneath here? What happened
Mhm.
at school? Or what are you feeling or ruminating about yourself? Like, where's that coming from? And when we get curious, a lot of it unfolds. And you can get curious in a really fun way with him. I think one of the best strategies I've ever employed with my very strong-willed kids is the curiosity through play. So I will literally make a scene, right? A scene that we're constantly struggling with. And I'll either make it with action figures or like my son was super into Spider-Man. So I had all the Spider-Man figures and we were kind of acting it like the Spidey and his amazing Spidey friends. We had all the little
Yes.
characters. And I basically played out a scene that we were constantly repeating over and over and over again. Like basically like you getting frustrated and then him kind of talking back to you and then you kind of
Mhm.
and I would start that scene out and I would let him take the lead and let him kind of unfold what's happening for him underneath in those situations. Because through play, there's no judgment, right? Through play,
Mhm.
they're very open, their hearts are open, their brains are open, it's very connected, it's very light, their nervous system is activated in a positive way. It's just all things, all cylinders are firing in the positive. And so
Mhm.
whenever I encounter a situation where I just don't know how to get the information out of my kid, I don't know how to answer the question that I'm like ruminating on, I'll jump into play. And I'll map out the scene or I'll try to mock up the scene in a way or I'll talk as a stuffed animal or something along those lines
Mhm.
just to remove any of the pressure, any of the felt judgment, any of the fear of telling the truth because it's not them, it's a character, and they're
Mhm.
able to share what's going on for them, inside their experience, right? They're able to use Spider-Man or use a stuffed animal or use clay or use a drawing to really express what's going on for them, and I think the the way in which we want to know these things really fast, we want to be able to help them as fast as possible because we don't want them to be stuck in this pattern, but as we do this, we allow it to go as far as they want, and then if they're done, right? And we pulled as much
Mhm.
information out of that as we can. And then we try again in a different way, in a different game the next time, or we create the same scene again 2 days from now and see if there's any more. And then we're just
Mhm.
kind of creating that safe scene for them to be able to share what's really going on for them, to be able to unfold and allow the truth, the honesty, the vulnerable feelings because they're not under pressure to share it with us in that exact moment. Because it can be
Okay.
really hard for a kid. My 8-year-old, if I'm like, "What is going on?" He's like, "I don't know. Uh." And that's all I get. "How was your day at school?" "I don't know." "Did anything happen?" "I don't remember." Like, those are the questions.
Yes.
But if I, like, open it up in a play scene, I get
Mhm.
way more information. And I maybe some that
Yeah.
I don't even want, but,
Yeah.
you know, I get a lot more through that. So, whenever I am struggling to connect, to understand, play is always that open door. Play is always that opportunity for the child to express themselves safely, and you'll learn so much more about what's going on for them.
And I think the thing that my husband and I both struggle with too is he's still he's still literally only 3 years old. So these strategies and things like that, they're great for kids who have the verbal skills to be able to say, "No, I'm overstimulated." And while he knows, he actually does know
Yeah.
what that means just because of everything we've tried to do, he's still only 3. And
Yeah.
so we can't make him get to that point that our 7-year-old is at where he can tell us,
Mhm.
"No, I am frustrated and I need a minute." Like he does not have that capability. And so these strategies are great for kids who are a little bit older, but with him being so young,
Yeah.
I think that they, you know, figuring him out kind of through how he plays is a really good start for us.
Yeah, and all they want is us for to play with them. That's all they want. They
Yes.
want our eyes on them exclusively. They just want our attention and they're just like they cannot get enough of our attention. And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
in that moment, you're on the floor playing with him and all of a sudden, one of the characters is has to go to a doctor's appointment
Mhm.
and then see what unfolds. see what fears he expresses, see how he, is thinking about the situation. Like he might be like, oh, I don't want to go, or, oh gosh, will she come back? And, you can, yeah, she's coming back. This is a routine checkup. Are you okay? Or how do you feel? Like things like that. And
Mhm.
all of that starts to give them that opportunity to really express themselves. And I think play, especially with the younger ones, is such an incredible way to like get information that will otherwise just fester and stay stuck. And you can
Mhm.
always, if it's getting too much, we're stopping the game, right? We never have to go like push,
Yeah,
just push,
absolutely.
push to get the intel. But I think that's a really beautiful strategy in order to just open his heart up, to see what he actually just naturally shares with you.
Absolutely.
The other thing I was thinking, especially for a really strong-willed, um, kid who's very expressive and sounds like really smart as well. Uh,
Oh, he is.
Something that we're implementing in our own house is shaking off the shoulds. And we can get as parents, my child shouldn't be talking to me like that. I should be able to manage this. They're also experiencing a version of shoulds, right? You shouldn't do that. The whole thing, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
And
exactly.
shoulds for me is just seeped in shame. And I'm so guilty of this too. A therapist years and years and years ago told me that should is just could wrapped in shame, right? It's just, yeah, I could
Mhm.
do it. Should I do it? Ugh, that's when it gets a little moral, a little muddy, like
Mhm.
all of that stuff. So quite literally turning on music that makes you want to dance, and we're shaking off the shoulds. Like actually verbalizing and saying out loud and shaking it off, like kind of like wiping it off your arms. Like, I should be able to do my homework faster. I should be able to brush my teeth on my own. Like all these things,
Mhm.
just giving some space and some breath to these things. And when they actually start to say the shoulds that they are maybe ruminating on or experiencing in their brain, then we get to help them with skills and systems around those things. Then those are indications like, oh, they feel shame around
Mhm.
not being able to do XYZ. Now I can step in and say, I noticed that you're struggling with this in a little bit. Can I help you? Like, can I help you with that first step? And one of the biggest things when we look at like the huge challenge, like there's such a big challenge in this, there's an overwhelming amount of stuff we could fix, right?
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
If we look at one and just focus on one and get really, really curious about how we can help in that one area, we know all those others are coming. We can deal with them at a later time. But it's almost like you see a cluttered room and you can't
Mhm.
clean the dresser, make the bed, fold the laundry, put the shoes away all at one time. We have to go section by section by section. And so I would really address like the very first section in the overall pattern. Which one feels the most triggering for you, most activating for you, most concerning to you, and take aim on that one. And let's focus on that one and just really work it through until you feel like, okay, we're in a flow here, then we can move to the next. And we're still following that same model of getting really curious. We're using play as the modality to teach. We're really, like you are already doing, investing in that emotional intelligence of just allowing the feelings and teaching you what to do with the feelings when they come up, right?
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
you are allowed to feel as angry as you want to feel. And here is how I do it, right? So my kids
Mhm.
know they'll squeeze a towel, they'll slam a pillow on the couch, they'll do all these things, but it has to be practiced repeatedly in front of them and modeled repeatedly in front
Mhm.
of them because exactly as you say, he says exactly what you say.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So he'll do exactly what you do as well. And so I think part
Mhm.
of it is, sharing how you're feeling in the moment, which you're already doing, and then saying, and here's how I'm going to work through this. Here's what my next step is. Here's how I handle my frustration. And as they start to see you model that over and over and over again, that becomes their default method of handling it as well.
Gotcha.
How are you feeling about all this? Like, what's coming up for you?
Honestly, just that want to, kind of move forward with him. I mean, like you said, we've tried so hard to, separate the behavior from the kid. And I think as a parent that almost makes it harder because you know that the behavior is not, you're like, this is not who you are. This is not how, you
It's
this
not
is not
you.
you.
It's not you.
Yeah. And so I think that reminder is a good thing to kind of hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Which one are you going to try first? What do you think?
Honestly, I think the figuring out the why. I think the curiosity aspect of it and actually, I mean, obviously as a parent you play with your you play with your kids, but doing it a little bit more for a purpose, and then purposefully kind of looking for these things without, trying to drag them out of him because he is so little.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's definitely a good starting point for
I love it. Yeah, the intentional play using words like I'm curious or I imagine you might be feeling those type of things really help them feel disarmed. They don't feel the threat. Anytime anyone's curious, it's never threatening.
that. Hmm.
It's never,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's like, oh, let's be detectives. Like I'm curious. That always sparks like that invitation to join them in an adventure. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
I love it. Well, Emilee, thank you so much for being here. I'm sure many people will find themselves in your shoes experiencing what you're experiencing. And so I just want to thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story. And I'm so grateful that your daughter is okay and that you're
Yeah,
moving
we are
forward
too.
there. So thank you again so much for being here. And everybody, I will see you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the ResponseABLE Parenting Podcast. If you like what you heard, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. If you know someone who would benefit from this podcast, I'd be honored if you'd share this episode with them. Until next time, know that you are enough, you are capable, you've made it through all of your hardest days, and we will keep growing on this parenting journey together. This podcast was produced by Kim Kelty and myself, Becky Jennings, and edited by the Kelty Method, Branding and Podcasting.